Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Blackbraid. Blackbraid 3 out August 8th, an independent release. This album has 10 tracks, 53 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are an American black metal band. When it comes to the design of this record, this is by far the band's best album. It's the album that is crafted with a sense of what the listener needs to get out of the experience of this record and how to make that experience as engaging, as entertaining as possible. Normally, I'm a huge critic of records that push the 53-minute mark or even higher than that. For me, honestly, anything over 45 minutes, depending on the album design and what the album has to offer, starts to really become a little bit too much of a stretch because the album starts to dilute itself the more you start to stretching it out. It's not the case with this record, and I think it's not the case because of a very simple reason. There are a bunch of instrumental tracks on this album that really help break the record. Now, the reason I'm not calling them interludes is because they're not really interludes. They are their own songs. And I love what they do because they do work like an interlude in terms of breaking the record, in terms of giving you a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a break, a reprieve, giving you almost a sense that you can reset, walk away, but not disconnect from the album and then re-engage back with it once the next song starts. So they have all of the attributes of what a great interlude can do within a record design. But they are their own songs, they are their own essence. And if you look at this album from a big picture standpoint, this album has a late night campfire feel to it from beginning to end. And if you're in that scenario and you're telling stories and each song becomes a story, these instrumental tracks become that glue that connects all of these stories together. That moment of reflection, that moment of introspect, that moment when the person who's listening to the story is able to reflect upon it and even sometimes ask questions back. So that moment of sometimes silence that takes for you to interiorize what the story is all about and the lessons that you can take from it on this record are put forward through an instrumental piece that is very earthy, very connected, but really allowing the album to stretch itself out without ever losing its sense of direction, its sense of purpose, and what it wants to offer to the listener from a big picture standpoint. So having these instrumental songs on this record, on one hand, it elongates the album, but in my opinion, it does it in a way that it's necessary for the other tracks to work even better in the overall concept of the record itself. Once you get into the sound of this album, two things jumped at me immediately. One is that this is a very heavy record, heavier than I was expecting it. Obviously, the instrumental tracks, being acoustic songs, don't really have that sense of heaviness in them. The mood, maybe you can make an argument that the mood of those songs is quite heavy, but musically, those songs are not heavy. But overall, there is a lot of heaviness on this record. The other element that this album has through its sound, and then the atmosphere that comes from that sound, is a sense of darkness. This is an album that's about the night. It's a very dark record. You can see it in the lyrics, you can see it in the song titles, you can see it in the music, you can see it in the atmosphere, and to a certain degree, you can see it in the vocal performance. So it's a very consistently dark record, even in the instrumental tracks. Still feels quite dark in those moments, perhaps not as dark as in some other songs, but still a little bit of darkness there. And like I said, the heaviness really plays a huge role in creating these two columns of consistency that drag out throughout the album, with its ebbs and flows, with its curveballs here and there, but overall, those two elements really dominate the soundscape and the atmosphere of the record itself. An album that also, from a soundscape point of view, very well crafted. The production behind this album surpasses what I've seen from the two previous records. It's an album that has more of a perfect symbiosis between all the different elements, be the drums, the bass, guitars, vocals. Everything has a lot more room. Everything has not just more room to breathe, but more room to expand upon without encroaching on the other elements. What this creates is an overall record that sounds bigger. The two previous albums were almost made to be played in small clubs. This record has a little bit more of a bigger arena or a bigger venue sound perspective. It fills the space around it sonically so much better without, like I said, losing anything. All the elements have their own lane, their own space, and because of that, they have a lot more depth within them, creating a much more impact. Volume, thickness, size, this record has it all as far as the sound is concerned. Now, two elements within that sound that I want to bring up. One is definitely the guitars. This is a very focused guitar sounding record. And you're going to have versatility around that guitar sound. On the heavier songs, you're going to get two things. You're going to get heaviness, obviously, from the guitars, but you're also going to get a lot of melody. This is almost more of a melodic black metal album at times than your prototypical black metal record. And when you have the acoustic side of the album, you allow that versatility of the guitar sound to exist. Now you're using one single element to provide 3, 4 different sonic perspectives that are very different from one another, but they all kind of work together to create that sense of linearity, at least when it comes to the darkness of the album. The other element of the sound that I thought was really well put together on this record are the drums. The drums on this album help with so many different things. They help with the size of the songs, with the thickness, the heaviness, the depth of the songs. But in a lot of these tracks, they also help create a little bit of a soul and a heartbeat that it's really important, specific to songs that are a little bit more driven, where the guitars feel a little bit more narrow, where there's a little bit more darkness to it. It's hard to find the heartbeat within that darkness, and the drums really help with that aspect, giving a little bit more soul to the tracks, because the tracks are not getting a lot of soul from the guitar sound. They're getting melody, they're getting drive, they're getting atmosphere. So you needed another element within the sound that adds that earthiness to the track, but also brings some soul into perspective. And I really found the drums on this album to do that more than in the two previous records. When it comes down to the vocals, the vocal performance is really good on this record. Really good. Very connected to the themes of the songs, very connected to the overall atmosphere of the tracks, and going to where the song needs to go. I didn't feel like this record offered a one-size-fits-all approach as far as the vocal performance is concerned. There is a sense of consistency to it, but from track to track, you're gonna find some small nuances, some small differences to really push the track in the direction that the song needs to go, from a storytelling standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, but even from an atmospheric standpoint. And I think that adds richness to the sound, to the experience, without changing too much and without having to reinvent the wheel, if you will. When you put all of this together, to me, this is Blackbraid's best record to date. And it's nice to see the growth of the band album after album after album. Each record, they've taken a step further on where they can take their sound without completely giving up on the DNA that got it all started. This record is just that. An album that connects with the previous two albums, but it also showcases their growth as artists, the growth from a creative standpoint, and how to bring all of that together under a single umbrella. Phenomenal record by Blackbraid. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with God of Black Blood. Very dark melodic track from a musical standpoint, and then vocally you have a little bit more aggression and intensity coming in. This allows the heaviness and the darkness of the sound to blend really well, because the vocals are kind of filling the gaps that exist that are not there, they're not provided by the sound itself. It's a track that also brings in this flute melody that it's super rich, very earthy. I'm not going to say folky because it's not, but it's definitely very earthy, playing into the theme of the song. And man, it carries quite a bit of darkness in that melody, in that sound, which adds or reflects in a very clear way the overall darkness that this song offers. The chorus, super simple, super effective, great guitar solo, really elevating the mood of the song and allowing the track to have moments where it sounds larger than life. Then you have Tears of the Dawn. This track has this amazing melody behind the overall darkness of the sound. That melody stays pretty consistent throughout the track. It comes and goes, and it shows itself in different formats, if you will, but it allows for a spinal chord to emerge very early on and be easily detected throughout the continuation of the song. This is to me a more of a melodic black metal track than a more traditional black metal song, or at least it starts more like a melodic black metal song, and then I feel like it morphs, it progresses. It's a track that doesn't stay stagnant, that has a lot of movement with it. Sometimes the movement goes in a little bit more narrow, where the guitar is feeling a little bit more penetrating, and sometimes creating a little bit more heaviness, a little bit more thickness, adding a little bit more size to it. But overall, regardless of the lateral movement that exists within the song's sound, this track is always about creating that darkness, providing an outlet for it, and really creating the right textures in order for that darkness to have a defined atmosphere attached to it. I love the way the song closes out, because the sound dies out, and there is a sense of dying out when you think about dawn. There's a sense of dying out, and there's a sense of rebirth. The two are kind of intertwined with one another, and this song, the way that it ends, it kind of gives you that feeling as well. So really well put together. Last but definitely not least, and he became the Burning Stars. Now this track, to me, it's one of the heaviest songs on the album, at least from a consistency standpoint, from start to finish. I love the melody that it has. It's not just about heaviness, it still has quite a bit of melody in it, but it's a very fluid song. The drums sound massive on this track. The guitars are very alive, very textured, very rich, and having a more melodic riff that really carries the track all the way through is such a great element to infuse darkness in a song that would have been so easy to lose it because of how overall heavy it is, the impact of the guitar's heaviness, the drums heaviness, the vocal heaviness. This song is very aggressive, is very meaty, so in a track like that, to find a way to intertwine some melody in there as a spinal chord, as a red line that takes you all the way through the track, definitely minimizes at times the overall heaviness of the song, but doesn't really dilute it. This is it, Blackbraid with Blackbraid 3, out August 8th. Hit me up in the comment section, let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles, and I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.